Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. Before we start with this interesting story about how, I assume you're American?
No, I'm actually Greek.
A Greek guy became a photographer. Do not forget to like, subscribe and follow and share if you like this episode. Nice to have you here today, Chris.
Nice to meet you, Simon. Good to be here.
So, photography.
Photography.
You've been to 70 countries?
I have been to 70 countries.
You do cinema, how do you say it?
Videography.
Videography, thank you.
Yes.
What are you filming? Nature, people, places?
Well, I think I've pretty much done most of it. I've done everything from underwater documentaries to news. I've done a lot of war zones.
David Attenborough stuff.
I have done not much of David, not at that level, but I have done some wildlife. And I've done...
was it tropical water diving?
So it was a documentary for German TV on an island in Greece about sponges and sponge diving.
Sponges?
So there was a long history on this island. Sponge divers, that's what they lived on. And it was a tradition. However, a lot of people were...
Well, you eat them?
No, you bathe with them.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think they had that in Kenya as well.
Yeah, so there was a big market, there was a big industry back in the day for natural sponges. Nowadays, most of them are not natural.
Yeah, synthetic.
Yeah, and that's how they made their money. And because at some point, they were overfished, diseases had caused the population to decline, they were pushing themselves to fish for longer. Mm-hmm. And they would fish with a type of scuba gear, but not the scuba gear we use today. And essentially, in scuba diving, if you were to breathe air underwater, that causes certain issues. If you're not free diving, but you are using compressed air, that causes certain issues, and you have to decompress on your way up. They didn't follow all the rules, and you had a lot of people getting the bends. Mm-hmm. And walking around the island, you would see a lot of people who were in wheelchairs or, hearing stories about people getting paralyzed or dying. And they had this traditional dance, which they would do once a year, and they would gather around in the village and they would dance as they were crippled. And it was portraying people who had been diving and had been injured in this process. So that was what the documentary was about.
Did they understand why they were getting injured?
Absolutely, yes. They knew, but they were just pushing their limits because they wanted, half more hour, get a few more sponges, because that's how they were making their living.
So you said you're a war correspondent as well.
I have covered.
What was that?
I started out with some troubles in Albania in 1996. Excuse me. Then I went to Kosovo. I've done Iraq. I've done... So Kosovo, Macedonia afterwards in 2000. There was an uprising there. It wasn't necessarily a full-scale war, but it was a conflict zone. I've been to Gaza, Iraq, Afghanistan, and I've been to many troubled regions.
Yeah, I was in Afghanistan.
Were you?
And I was meant to go Kosovo when I joined the military.
Yeah.
But I didn't end up going for various different reasons. Was there any time where you just thought, I can't film this anymore, this is too much?
Not really. I mean, there was a sort of a mechanism that helped me cope was when I was looking through the viewfinder of the camera, an electronic viewfinder, which is essentially a screen, a little television. It kind of distanced me from what was really happening. And I kind of was able to control my emotions more that way. But yes, many times there was grave danger and we had to pull back and not, go where we were going. Or, in Iraq, we almost got killed a couple of times. So
what happened there when you nearly got killed? Airstrikes, small arms?
No, it was right after the bombing had stopped, and by then we were there for more than a month. We had gone in through northern Iraq down to Baghdad, and on the last day we packed our stuff and we were going back to Erbil, which is in northern Iraq, and we were going to leave from there. And because we had gotten away with a lot, and everybody was very, very relaxed and chilled, Our driver, who was local, and our translator and all that are helping with the stuff. Put everything in the car, drove off. We were in a convoy of 2 cars.
The armored vehicles?
No,
Did you have
no,
escorts?
just no
Going naked kind of thing?
no security, nothing.
Yeah.
Back then I was working for Swiss TV, and the correspondent was of the mentality that it's not real journalism when you're doing it with security and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure why, but
You may not get the picture if you're not doing
exactly.
it.
I have worked with security much later, and I realized that, it's
pros
an
and cons.
asset. It's
Yeah.
it's a life-saving asset, because basically it's not just them shooting. It's not them shooting back. It's them doing a risk assessment, telling you this area is a no-go zone,
Yeah.
or you really need to get there. Let's take a different route.
And they know the signs of the
They know the
environment.
signs. They have contact with other security people working for other agencies, and they liaise among themselves, and they get information. So on that day, we just took the route that the driver chose. Now, we didn't have much information on what roads are safe and what not. At the end of the day, it could be safe now, and an hour later it isn't.
So the
However,
windows aren't blacked out or nothing?
nothing. It
So
was
they just got a bunch of Europeans.
yeah. with
This is getting better by the second.
with 10,000, with tens of thousands of pounds worth of TV equipment,
Yeah.
and we would just hire locals with their cars. That's what we did.
I hope you got paid well for this.
No, it's a normal rate when you're at war. Usually, it's a normal rate. So we're on our way, and as we're driving, there's one car in front of our 2-car convoy, and we hear the popping sound of an
Rounds.
AK-47. Yeah, and then what happens is the car in front of us stops because the tires were blown out, and our first car almost crashes into it. However, avoids it, and by the time the car I was in, which was the second car, arrives at that point, I see 2 men coming out of the car and running for their lives, and 2 more men with Kalashnikovs coming out of the ditch, chasing them.
Were they journalists?
No, they were locals. They
The
were
locals
Yeah,
who came running.
it was someone who was about late 30s, maybe 40s, and somebody who looked like it could be his father in his 60s, and
60-year-old man running.
running away from the car for their lives at us. Help me, kind of look in their face. And I said to the driver, stop the car. When I said that, he stops the car, and then they start shooting at us. So the correspondent I was with, who was in the car in front of me, sees this and just shouts, "What are you doing? Go, go, go!" So the driver floors it, as I remember looking back, seeing the desperation in these people's face. And we were unharmed. However, we found out later that the previous day 7 were killed in that area, and what they did is they would hide in the ditch, see a car that they liked, and back then a lot of cars were Mitsubishi Pajeros, which the locals told me they would call them Monicas, from Monica Lewinsky, because they were beautiful cars. And they would call them Monicas, and that was kind of a thing back in Iraq back then. So anybody who was there would probably know this and remember this. So the car in front of us was a Monica, was a Pajero, and they just shoot at your tires, they kill you and take your car and go. And that's what they did on that day.
They killed the other 2.
I didn't see that.
But then they know the price, anyway, and stuff. Why didn't they have guns? I don't understand that.
I mean, they were just locals.
Doesn't matter. You can get guns out there.
I don't know.
That's.
But that's when I learned the value of having security. They would have researched and found out that the previous day 7 were killed on that road, and probably choose a different road.
Out of all your experience doing your videography, your martial arts, what have you learned that you wish you knew when you'd started?
You mean in life?
Yeah, in life.
It's a difficult one because I've learned so much. It's
Doesn't
been a journey.
It doesn't just have to be one thing, but you're a well-travelled man. You've come to death's door on more than one occasion. we have quite a bit in common as well. So I used to dive as well and stuff. I learned in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Mombasa.
Beautiful.
And obviously we've both been in the military and both been to war zones.
Yeah.
And
are you originally from Kenya?
No, my parents are Jamaican. I'm born here.
So what's the Kenyan connection? Because you said Mombasa.
Yeah, I ended up living there because once I left the British military in 2010, I went to do the anti-piracy, stopping the pirates hijacking the vessels. And one of the ports we used to stop at was Mombasa, and it was actually the slowest port at the time, even slower than Zanzibar.
Right.
And so I used to spend a lot of time ashore, partying, safaring, diving, just chilling out, great life. And eventually I decided I'm going to set up camp there and have some businesses.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking is because Kenya is very close to my heart, and I've filmed a documentary in Kenya.
Masai Mara? That's it?
No, not that kind of documentary. This was a investigative documentary about extrajudicial killings in Kenya.
Oh, with not the Mau Mau's, what were those people called?
No, this was the government ordering the assassination of Muslims.
I know what you're talking.
Yeah.
In Mandera and those places.
In Mombasa, mostly, but also in Nairobi, as well.
Yeah, because I met this woman out there, and one day her husband used to work for the council, what we call the council, the municipal up there, and the government came to get him. She's never seen him again.
Yeah. What they do is they have, like, if you have a Muslim cleric or somebody who is outspoken about the oppression of Muslims in Kenya, they say that they incite terrorism or that they fund terrorism or whatever, and they take them to court. And if they can't prove anything, and they don't lay low, they continue to be outspoken against the government and stuff. And their policies in Somalia and Ethiopia, they not in Ethiopia, but the war, it's essentially their stance in Somalia. They just kill them on the street. And this was a documentary we did for Al Jazeera. It's on YouTube if you want to watch it. It's called Inside Kenya's Death Squads. Inside
Kenya Death Squads. I think I've seen that.
Yeah.
Was it at one point you was interviewing these guys who work for the government?
Yeah.
And he said about if you shoot somebody and you realise that wasn't the person, you have to kill them because you don't want them to tell you. It's sad, but what am I meant to do?
I don't.
I think that.
I don't specifically remember that, but I do remember people being proud of what they've done. One guy said he's killed 50.
Yeah.
And he says, of course, I'm proud. He says, because I'm protecting my country.
Yeah.
So, they take them to the court, and they can't prove anything, so they need to get rid of them. They just pop them on the street.
We're coming near to the end of our journey. It's been a fascinating interview with loads of stories. You're an interesting guy.
It's been an amazing pleasure.
Where can people find you? I take it you're on social media, LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very big with social media, but I am on LinkedIn. My name is Chris Olivotos. I am on Instagram as well.
Do you want to spell that for us?
Yeah, it's Chris, CHRIS, .Olivotos, OLIVOTOS.
Okay.
And it was a real pleasure. It was a beautiful ride and an amazing conversation with you, Simon. It was lovely to meet you.
Thanks. That last question I asked you, you got an answer yet? What have you learned? It doesn't just have to be one thing.
Where we come from in Greece, they say that everybody is carrying their own cross. So I would say one thing I've learned is to be kind to people, because you don't know what everybody is going through in their personal life. And be kind and live today, because what we tend to do is we always plan for the future, which is good. However, heard this a lot, but we linger over the past and plan for the future, which never comes because the future is now. We keep thinking about tomorrow, but that tomorrow is our everyday, and we don't really live it. And although if I was to go back with a time machine, I would probably do it all again And I would go to all these war zones because it was a really good life lesson, to appreciate what you have. Obviously, work hard to better yourselves and others, but appreciate your life and appreciate what you do have. Wake up in the morning, take a deep breath, and appreciate the gift of having that breath, and essentially not being shot at, not, the basic, the things that we take for granted, the everyday things we take for granted.
I understand. Well, thanks a lot for that, and we wish you well.
Thank you very much. Wish you well too, Simon. Have a lovely day.
We hope that episode enhanced your life. We post an interview every day as well as vlogging on our social media channel. Don't forget to subscribe to get our latest episode.